The title of my film was Burn, and this is very conventional for social realism films because it's focusing on one of the main issues in the plot. A film that does this is This Is England, which clearly shows that culture is a focus in the film. Also, you can see from my screenshot that Burn is focused in the middle of the shot, which tells the audience that it's very important in the film. The setting of my opening sequence is quite conventional for social realism. Firstly, you can see that it's in a housing estate, which is typical for social realism films such as A Room for Romeo Brass, which is focused on a town area. And also you can see that it's quite a lonely and deserted place, which I think reflects the character's loneliness and also shows her innocence because it's quite a big area and she's all on her own. I think that costumes and props used in my opening sequence are conventional for social realism. You can see that she's wearing trackies, which are conventional for social realism because it's the sort of chav culture which is being reflected, and she's also wearing a white top which is basic and plain and demonstrates to the audience that she isn't rich and is having a basic life. I think that the camera work and editing is conventional for my opening sequence. I've tried to use match on action, and this is demonstrated in the walking scene, and I've also tried to vary my usage of shot types. Here you can see I've used a close-up, and this is conventional for social realism as it's often used to show the emotions of the characters. The font and style of my title is conventional for social realism. You can see I've used a mixture of capital and lowercase letters, which is done in several films and reflects the unintelligence of the characters. Also, I've used white on black, which makes the titles easy to read, and the font I've used is quite representative of social realism because it's that kind of street style. This is one of the titles from the film A Room for Romeo Brass. You can see that they've used a mixture of capital and lowercase letters, as I did, and they've also used white on black, so I think that this shows how my opening sequence is conventional in terms of titles. I think the story presented in my opening sequence is conventional for social realism. Firstly, it's focused on homelessness and poverty, and this is often looked upon as typical for social realism. Also, you can see that she's pulling her sleeve up to reveal a burn, and this is one of the key shots as it really shows what the whole film is about, as well as foreshadowing the events which will happen later. There are many places in my opening sequence which reflect the genre, but I think that this shot is particularly representative. You can see a young girl holding a cigarette in her hand, looking fairly stressed, and this is typical for social realism because smoking, alcohol and drugs are all themed in social realism, and you can see that smoking has been picked up on here, as well as her isolation and poverty, so you can clearly tell that it's a social realism film. An example of a film where they're shown smoking is Kidulthood, and on the screen here you can see two teenage boys who are smoking, and I think that this has quite strong links to my film and shows how my film is conventional. I think that I've been conventional in my representation of characters because I've portrayed them strongly in the opening sequence. From this shot you can see that the character is quite young, she's all on her own and she's homeless, and this is conventional for social realism, although in some ways it's unconventional to have a female character as the majority of characters in social realism are male. The special effects used in my opening sequence are focused mainly to the beginning of the opening sequence where I've got the footage in black and white. I think this is quite conventional because a lot of social realism films do have footage in black and white at the start, either to show the time period which the footage is in, or to show that the events are in the past. And in this case I've used black and white to demonstrate that the events are in the past. This is a flashback of the character.